Hello and welcome back to the Cornhusker Cooldown. My name is Patrick Patio. As always, I have mojojoe with me after another successful week. CCL?
Yeah, I mean, it was played against Augustana. We won 2-0.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to try to dwell on it for too long. At the end of the day, it was a top team versus a bottom team. And it went as you expected. 18-minute game and then a 26-minute game.
Yeah.
With a roughly 20K goal lead in the 26-minute game.
Yeah, it definitely got out of hand really quick. Game one, you guys played for this tower shoving.
We, Ziggs, Tristana, Gwen set with Gwen being in jungle, took 6 scrubs, took Rift Herald, just kind of ran it down mid, took both Nexus towers at 14 and a half, 15 minutes.
And then we didn't end somehow.
And then we griefed because it was funny.
You guys could have ended before 15 minutes.
Maybe if Jerry hit his R3 on Samira, it would have been different. But, hey, it's wide left.
Yeah, it was a good game. It's hard for them to do anything about it.
I was playing Tristana 80 carry. That's terrible.
I was shocked that it wasn't Tristana mid and Ziggs bot, but it understands with Arkan's pool.
Yeah, so we both play Ziggs, and then I'm the only one who really plays Tristana.
Right.
We talked about it, and it was originally a flex pick, but then we looked. They had a Samira Rel, and obviously Ziggs is like, if you get on that Ziggs, it's pretty easy to get on the Ziggs. Whereas Tristana, you have at least the W, and then the Tristana Syndra matchup is very Syndra favored. It's one of Syndra's better matchups,
right,
in mid lane. So we just put Tristana bot lane, and I mean we can both play the champs. I thought Tristana was weak, though I only ever got to an item and a half, so it's kind of hard to judge.
Yeah, whenever the game's 18 minutes, but you didn't even get to, it was 18 minutes. It was a 15-minute game.
It was really a 15-minute game where we had a little bit of fun. So
yeah, I mean, I think one thing, and I think this showed up in kind of both games, was... So we were expecting this to be a blowout for sure.
It pretty much was.
And it was.
Yeah.
I was expecting it to be more of a blowout, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, if we played super seriously, only our meta picks, best champions or whatever, it would have been probably slower games, by 2 or 3 minutes or whatever. But at the end of the day, it would have been boring to play.
Yeah, I think it just mimics the it would mimic the USD.
Yeah, and I mean when we are playing this is Ziggs, Tristana, Gwen, Rakan set, it's you don't have a great comp, and we were just kind of fighting for fun because we were hitting their Nexus towers at 14 and a half minutes. So yeah, we weren't really trying to always play together or have the best comms or whatever. We're just trying to have fun.
Yeah, and I mean you guys definitely did that for game 2.
Game 2.
Win Brothers. Right
so my 1-2, because I was drafting this week, by the way. My 1-2, I was like, what would be a very funny 1-2 to see on stream? So I was like, okay, well, Yone and Yasuo, of course, because this is totally grief, right? They countered with the Rammus. So funnily enough, Jerry any one of varsity will, but Jerry specifically will quote me on this. I said, don't worry, guys. I'm going to not ban Skarner. They'll pick it because they can't resist with it, not play their main champion. And I'm going to let Rammus be up even though it's turbo into our comp, right? So they picked it anyway.
And then they picked it. It was great.
However...
And he performed pretty well on it. It's a Rammus. So
he pressed W.
He pressed W.
He pressed W
E and W.
When he needed to. However, to be fair, this enabled my Karthus. All right? Karthus was always going to be picked unless it was so bad that I had to pick Quay. And then last but not least, well, I guess we had Diana for the Yasuo Yone. So we had Yasuo top Diana, then Yone, then Karthus 80 carry. But last but not least,
the cherry on top.
The pick I didn't even plan for, I was like,
Resistance.
I just asked Z what he wanted to play, and he said Silas.
Which
honestly, I looked at their comp, I was like, yeah, I mean, it's not only a funny pick, but it's not even that bad. So
and he did really well on it. Yeah, player of the series.
4.6 KDA, roughly 60-ish % KP. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's not like any one person especially in game 1, had super great games. Game 2, I think he had the most kills of the team. He might have.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he did really well game 2, showed off his mechanical muscles on the Silas. And
it was fun to see.
Yeah.
It was definitely, watching the games was a fun watch.
So, funny thing about Silas with the Karthus 80 carry, when your Silas E's in, you Karthus W to slow and magic resist shred. And it's very dumb because Silas's one shot are like very good trading potential in the early levels.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like exemplified by
It actually worked.
it actually just works kind of.
That is
kind of. You are playing Karthus Silas, so it's like kind of grief as well.
It definitely doesn't work. But also
they played Ezra Renata, so it's also kind of grief.
So that's.
But yeah, I'm not going to dwell on it too much.
No, I think Augustana should not feel bad about this series either.
No, I rewatched the games. I think their top laner did fine.
Yes,
Honestly, he had some good plays top lane. I think because I remember he walked mid and killed Alex.
Yep.
So that shouldn't have happened because Isaac was also not paying attention. So no one said that Renekton was missing, or that he was walking bot lane because apparently we saw it happen, or walking mid lane because apparently we saw it happen. But it is what it is. Yeah. Alex just should have not died.
Yeah, shouldn't do that. But it did happen. It did happen. So, but that was the Augustana series. Nothing too crazy from that. I think the series that are more interesting are actually the rest of the CCL games that happened. First one being DSU versus SDSMT.
Yes, and I was not able to watch this one. DSU 2-0 SDSMT, I believe. So SDSMT did have a sub support, and they moved everyone around to have off rolls. I think it's their second week straight of doing that, by the way, if I remember. And they just did not look very good. I mean, I think Malmo, DSU's 80 carry, had an insane Twitch game or whatever.
Yeah, he did. So I mean, I want him off the Swain. I know it's he plays this pick. I want him on these. They put him on Jinx and Twitch, and all of a sudden now they hard carry. I don't.
Yeah, and it was AD Twitch. It wasn't AP.
Keep doing that. Better. It's so much better for your team.
I don't know if you're just sandbagging, which would, if you are, is funny. I'll give you that. But I think they played a lot better. Mm-hmm. And but the second series, I was more surprised at. I think both of us thought it was going to go the other way. Mm-hmm. NDSU 2-0'd ISU, and it was pretty convincing as well. Yeah,
it was definitely not close at all.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to watch this series, and it's just Flakes for Life, ISU's top laner, did well. Was getting kills on the Gragas or whatever. But at the end of the day, Chanter, NDSU's 80 carry, was just getting, a kill a minute on Kog'Maw. So when you have 15 kills at 15 minutes on Kog'Maw, it's you're not going to lose the game. And that really, I mean, if we want to move on to power rankings, unless you have anything to say,
no, I mean, I think Chanter is definitely the golden child on that team.
Mm-hmm. I feel like every time they win, it's through him usually. Because their top lane specifically plays that more supportive style, Poppy-esque. Mm-hmm. He loves playing that Poppy. Good champion.
And then, but for ISU, again, it is Flakes. Everything's around Flakes. It's this top lane. But it just was not enough. And I think that was whenever we had originally talked about ISU, we were talking about, is that going to be the thing that takes them over the edge? Is the skill discrepancy in these lanes where they have these really good champs?
Top lane and 80 carry specifically, but
right.
I mean, we can talk about this a little bit more in power rankings. I think.
I guess if you want.
Yeah, I mean, both of us still have UNL first.
Undefeated.
I mean, they're undefeated. Yeah.
Beat
everyone else except for SDSMT, I guess.
Yeah. Well, next week.
But I have moved NDSU from third to second after their convincing win against ISU. Makes sense, right?
I did as well.
You've only lost to the first place team, and you've beaten pretty much everyone else. But I moved DSU from fourth to third as well. Mm-hmm. Obviously, beat SDSMT pretty convincingly, but just overall, I just have more confidence if they're not playing Swain, AP Twitch type of stuff, Seraphine or whatever. And I moved ISU from second to fourth.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely knocked him down. I think for a decent, I still think that.
Like,
So
I think ISU and DSU will, like, ISU may have beaten DSU, like 2-0 in their week, but even then, it felt like DSU was also just griefing. So I think ISU have kind of been, looking back, they've kind of been frauds. I probably rated them too high as well. I think at the end of the day, when you look at ISU's games, you're seeing a lot of top lane skill checking the other top laner, which I think is not the worst in an ELO bracket like this. And their AD carry, who's supposed to be their second best player, kind of not doing anything super special or whatever. And then they usually win because either they're way better skill-wise or the other team is griefing, or they have a turbo comp, which is like, when I look at them and ask, like, why are they winning? And it's not usually because, like, they're, as a team, playing macro super well, or as a team outplaying their opponents all the time. It feels it feels hard to put them above teams that that can do that. So
yeah, I think the reason why I still have ISU above DSU, because I also moved NDSU up to second, just because
naturally
you have to, and that's where they should be. That's probably where they'll end up. I think it's that thing that you were saying, whereas it's that just like skill check in the top lane. I think that just has such a big impact in games more often than not, that it makes the longer these series go, it's just going to have more of an impact. So because DSU hasn't completely fixed everything, they start putting Momo on the champs that I'd like to put Momo on. But I think they can still play through flakes if they can.
I would say the only other issue is, like we say, he's skill checking top lanes, but he's also like playing Sion or Gragas,
right?
Which he can do, and you can carry on those champs to an extent, but like it would be a lot different. And I think I'd rate ISU better, or they'd just be a better team if he was
like Jax, Camille,
Fiora, Camille, even like Gnar, Yone, stuff like that. And I would also think like they would just be a lot better if their AD carry was just playing to the level that he should be at the rank that he is. So
I think that's fair.
No.
And then we don't have anything different on the rest of the.
No, we have SCSMT 5th, Augustana 6th, USD 7th.
Yep.
Nothing changing. And I want to say one more thing about power rankings.
Okay.
We talk about this 2-tier thing. I think it's split into 3 tiers now.
Oh.
So I have essentially the bottom tier being Augustana USD.
Okay.
And then I have a top tier of ISU, DSU, NDSU, UNL. And I think SCSMT seems to be no man's land, right?
Yeah.
They got 2-0'd by NDSU. They got 2-0'd by DSU. They got 2-0'd by ISU. But they're 2-0'ing Augustana USD. And most likely you're going to get 2-0'd by us.
Should be.
Like, they're not good enough to beat any of the top teams. And it's not like all the games have been super close bangers or whatever. Some of them have, but like they just are in no man's land. And I am disappointed. I wanted SCSMT to take that next step, to be in a potential to make it to finals or whatever. And I thought they had the roster to do it, but
yeah. And the worst part is, because of the way that the bracket is probably going to end up getting scaled up, they just had a pretty rough loss into DSU. That's probably who they're going to play. And was it not semis but quarters?
Quarters.
So be rough.
I think it's some weird thing.
Because it should be it's going to be Augustana or USD versus whoever's in the third. Most likely it'll be them versus the third seed, and then fourth seed versus fifth seed. SDSMT shouldn't move, so we'll see who SDSMT face. But either way, it's going to be really hard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have faith in them at this point. They've not earned my faith. So. But next week in CCL, we play against SCSMT, who we just talked about. I think we both expect it 2-0.
Yep.
Especially with this, mixed match roster where everyone's like seemingly off-rolling. It's just going to be a large, especially mid-bot gap, I'd say.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is, in going later into these seasons, you need to make sure that undefeated teams are like held accountable and like still improving. And I think that like we are still improving, especially because we've had games taken off of us.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping us humble, keeping us realistic,
Keeping us honest.
and so the fact that we are still working on stuff and we are improving on those things just means that we're not gonna like let off on the gas whenever it comes to SMT.
Yep.
So,
but let's go to the rest of the league. We have honestly what should be one of the best games we can watch. DSU versus NDSU. Second versus third, essentially.
Or second versus fourth.
I think they're tied for third.
They might be
with ISU, but whatever.
Yep.
I'm just gonna go to my prediction. I think NDSU will win 2-1. I know you don't have it 2-1.
I think it's just gonna be a very clean sweep.
Yeah, I think DSU has it in them to play a good game, to win a game, and I think. Like, if DSU won this series, I wouldn't be super surprised, but I'm expecting NDSU to, just because overall they've looked cleaner, they've had better drafts, et cetera, et cetera. But I just think Malmo is the 180 carry in the league that we play against that feels like he's just going to have a good game sometimes, and he's just going to carry the game or whatever. So I think it's going to happen once.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it definitely has to happen through that bot lane. And if there's a lane that you can super hard punish versus NDSU, it's probably that bot lane.
Yes, because we talk about Chanter being like the best player on the team, but also, like, you take him off the Kog'Maw, he feels significantly less impactful. Like we played against the Seraphine, and it just was not it. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I think my bigger thing was their support is just not up to snuff in the same way. Like it's not on the same. It's the discrepancy between Chanter and Frodden are quite high and
quite large. Yeah. But second series is kind of it might be another banger. Augustana versus USD, University of South Dakota. I have Augustana winning 2-0. However, I think it would be hilarious if USD won or even just took a game off them. So do it for me.
Yeah. Augustana, I've always believed in you forever and ever. You will always have my heart. 2-0. Let's go. I know we just crushed you, but
do it for him.
Do it for me. Come on. So, yeah, it should be. I'm hoping for a 2-0 for Augustana.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
There's not a whole lot to be desired because, I mean, at the end of the day, this team will probably just be 2-0 in quarterfinals.
Yeah. Whoever wins this game, will probably be the one to get into playoffs.
We'll have the honor of getting 2-0.
Of getting crap done. So, but you get a chance to play another series, and that's why we're here, is to play competitive games.
You have a chance to at least win the series. So,
come on, we like those odds. We like those odds.
But we can move on to JV.
JV.
I'll say before anything else, Scarlet had a bye week, so
yes,
yeah, it is what it is.
They did not play.
They did not play him,
but Black did play.
But Black did play, and as the coach of draft or coach of Black. Disappointing, but expected, I guess.
The outcome was semi-expected. The draft was quite odd.
It was like ours, disrespectful, but I think even more so.
I would say, yeah, even more. But I to give some credit, it wasn't like the matchups weren't terrible.
Yeah.
So first game we have Camille top because we're thinking that we're going to be answering an Ornn, and we have a Gwen and Camille. Like we have really good answers into Ornn, and it was actually Ornn jungle Warwick top, which Warwick is a much better matchup in the top lane. They had Zed mid lane for Aurora, and ideally I think Aurora should be fine, but
it should be fine. It's probably
it's hard to make it fine at this elo, I think. And then I think the most punishing one was we had Kaisa Amumu versus Hui Janna, and I think Hui Janna is just always going to shove in the lane. They're going to be super safe the whole time.
You're not going to kill Hui Janna.
You're never going to kill them.
At least your Kaisa's not being like dogged on or whatever. So.
Right. But I think the biggest thing in that series was, and this was the same thing across both games, was the lack of communication and the lack of focus. It felt like a lot of the things that we had been working on, we kind of dropped the ball on. To give some credit, game 1 to game 2, much, much better. We are a game two Andes.
Game 2 Andes, but still lose.
We still lose. But hey, next week this is our best shot.
Yep.
So last week we played against Elysium Calypso, who is the second, they're ranked second in our bracket. However, we're going against DOV Gamers, who are 1-3 right now, and their only win is against the Argonauts, who I think we had our best performance into. So this is actually a pretty...
The closest you're going to get to having an actual series, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think if we can... I think we really have to focus up. I think we have to really focus up. We have to try really hard in this prep moving into this week. If we can do that, I do believe in the carry potential in some of our players. And then the other hard thing about this is the sub situation.
Yeah, I know Nash has been subbing in. I know Isaac subbed in at one point.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate.
Yeah, you want to use the starters.
You want to have your starters for all your scrims, all your games, but sometimes it just won't happen for whatever reason or not. So
yeah, so that should be a very fun one. But I think an even more fun one is for Huskers Scarlet, who are 3-1 right now. They're up against White Lotus, and the White Lotus is 4-1. And both of those teams' losses is against Big Bongo Boys.
Yes.
So
I think they're all like tied for first, essentially.
Right. Yeah, they're all. I mean, there's a clear top 3. There's a very clear top 3, and this is going to be a deciding game for who is that forerunner.
Didn't we beat Big Bongo Boys and we lost to Poison Panthers? I believe it was that.
I think we 2-0'd Big. I'll double check real quick.
But yeah, I think we 2-0'd Big Bongo Boys. So I'm not sure if I think it is the stream game as well. So check it out on Risen Esports Twitch.tv. It will be certainly interesting. I think our JV team our Scarlet team has done really well this season, especially compared to last semester.
Oh my gosh, such a huge improvement.
And I think, going into playoffs, because at this point I think they're guaranteed playoffs. I think they're looking to at least have a chance to win it all. It's going to be hard, and I think they know it's going to be hard, but I think we have a solid group of 5 that like to work together, like to play together, all have good individual skill. So
yeah, and they're always hanging out in chat. They're always asking for coaching sessions. Ben, I swear I'll get a coaching session with you. I swear.
Stop briefing your games also.
But no, I mean, like this team really has been trying so hard the whole season long, and has just been pedal to the metal. And I think that's really shown in the kinds of improvement that they've been making, and the focus that's happening in their games.
Yeah.
It's been really cool to see. It's been we're learning a lot I'm learning a lot watching the difference between the 2 JV teams and the way that they're working. It's really interesting to see. I'm learning a lot, and it's really fun to kind of be a part of it. And it's also fun to have a JV team that is winning and doing great, because
like old Huskers Black, like us 2 were playing on. Actually won games.
We did. In very fun fashion.
True. We could have won LAS if we didn't, always have subs in quarterfinals for random reasons.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think, that is definitely going to be the series to watch on Saturday. It's actually going to be streamed on the Risen.
Yes, I did mention that already. So.
Oh, well, good. I'll mention it again, and then I'll mention it later as well.
Yeah, before we go into our Worlds coverage, I would just say we're going to talk about Varsity CLOL just as a whole next week, I think. Yep. Just because the scheduling has been a little bit scuffed. We haven't been able to stream all the games because they overlap with JV's games, or we're at events or whatever for it. But you'll get to hear about it next week. Next week's probably going to be a very long episode thinking about it. So
yeah,
but hey,
it'll be good. It'll be good.
Worlds.
But Worlds is happening.
Quarterfinals happened a few days ago. Let's just get a vibe check on the overall quarterfinals as a whole, I guess.
It's been okay. It's been some of the games have been really fun. But the hype is it's mixed, I guess, for me. Some of the series are pretty fun.
Yeah, I think like even though I have a T1 jersey on, I've been critical of T1 this year. It's always not fun to watch just like a team get giga stomped in quarters like TES did. And I even had TES winning because admittedly, like you look at T1's form going into quarters and TES's form going into quarters, like TES played really, really well in Swiss stage and they beat T1. And T1 had like some struggles, even though they were improving from the summer split. Like
Faker World's buff.
I mean, T1 World's buff in general.
Yeah.
But it's just frustrating to see. Like also with the LNG Weibo series, you had the same idea of like Weibo didn't do some insane plays or drafts to win the game. It felt like LNG was kind of just griefing, fraudulent at some times. Zika was just like dying to breathe solo with flash. Like you have to flash when Nar is next to the wall.
I think to be fair, those two series were definitely the
and then
more boring of the quarterfinals.
Do you want to go into which series do you want to go into first?
Of the ones that we haven't talked about yet?
Yes.
We can talk about Hanwha's first.
All right. Well, as your resident Hanwha Life esports fan, super fan, Viper fanboy, Stan. I have a few things to say. I'll cover the series as a whole first. So, game 1, Silas B1. I actually like it. Zeka's really, really good at Silas. And then Knight, Ari's into it anyway. And I was like, why are you picking Ari? I know you're really good at Ari, but you're also self-proud of picking. And then, I mean, I think the reason why I'm a Hanwha Life fan was shown in game 1. Is like, it was a good game. Both sides played pretty well, but you watched the game, and I just felt like watching Viper, and Delight, and Zeka, they all played fantastic. And the plays that they were making, I feel like only those players could make those.
Right.
So do you remember, like, Delight was on the Alistar. Do you remember him, like, doing the W flash on the Misfortune near blue buff?
No.
So near blue buff, Delight, like, ults, like, Misfortune's ulting, Delight walks up, ults in the Misfortune ult, and then W's to support, and then flashes to
flash
Elk. And it was like, to me, while it's not the most mechanical play, or it's not even like the hardest play, it just feels like Delight's the only one who makes those.
Right.
And same thing with like Zeka. He just is the only one who makes some of these plays, and I just find them really exciting to watch.
Yeah.
So game 2 and game 3 really frustrated me because they were BOG favored for most of it. They weren't like super stomps, but they were clear winners.
Right.
And we picked Ari both games. I don't understand why. So we pick Silas game 1 into Ari and we win it, and then we pick Ari into Silas game 2 or game 3 and we lose it, and we're surprised. I don't know. But game 4, I think so far has been the best game of Worlds though.
Yeah. It was, I mean, that was definitely a very exciting game. I think Viper was playing so good this whole series also.
Like, I think we saw one of the reasons why Viper is like so good as an AD carry. You see him play so many different champions. He's always playing them to essentially, like, you could say he's a top 3 at that champion in the world, or even the best of the champion in the world.
Right.
It's like game 4, I was a little disappointed because Misfortune is not the strongest champion right now. But she's not bad. She's not the strongest, but at the end of the day, I would rather see Viper, your best player, your main carry, on something closer to a Kai'Sa or a Kalista or whatever.
Right.
Something that has a little bit more agency in the game, 1v9 potential or whatever. Like, you saw Elk, how he's able to carry those, like, super close fights because of his mechanical skill. But at the end of the day, like, Misfortune just has less of that.
Right. So
even though it was a banger game, I mean, best game I've watched in a very long time. Did not go my way.
Gigabin.
Yeah, so I have a few notes on the series outside of that. I think this series is like, it shows why top lane has been an undervalued role for the past few years. I think people talk about it in like a, it has so low impact in, like, it just doesn't have the same reach as jungle or mid or whatever. But I mean, looking at this series, looking at Passport Championships, just like go ask yourself like what teams are making very far, what teams are winning worlds, and what are the top laners doing, right? So this year, obviously, Bin completely destroyed Doran, and they were able to win the series.
Mm-hmm.
And arguably, if Doran wasn't doing poorly, or if Bin wasn't 1v9ing or playing, more supportive champs, I think Hanwha Life is very much in favor because, like, looking at the rest of the map, obviously, I think Viper beat Elk. Like, Elk did really well, but I think Viper had a better series. I think Knight had a poor series, and I think Zeka did really well. I think Peanut and June, like, were roughly even, and I think Delight had more impact than On, though On, again, did perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when Doran specifically got gapped by Ben that much, and you're able to see the results all the way across the map, it's like, it just gets frustrating because too many people talk about top lane in that way. And like looking back last year, there were two finalists are the Shy and Zeus, two carry top laners, and arguably the series was won mostly through top lane, through Zeus just destroying the Shy, and then year before that, Kingin, best tournament of his life, playing out of his mind on Aatrox every game, won Worlds. 2021 Flandre, I mean, he's not very known, but he was playing ridiculously well in that Graves top lane during that 2021 run, and then obviously 2020 with Nuguri, I mean, best player in the world at that time, and just doing super well. And even 2020, Bin was in finals.
Yep.
Like, I think Jay, our producer, and I talked about it a little bit beforehand. We are seeing the death of like a supportive style top lane, not in the idea that you can't play it, but that if your top laner cannot play a Jax or Camille or a Mordekaiser or some sort of carry top laner and can actually 1v9 a game or actually just force his team to win, I think you're not going to be able to make it in the upper echelons of like this Worlds tournament anymore. You might be able to make it to corners or whatever, but I just don't think you're going to have a chance to actually win Worlds if your top can't 1v9. So
yeah, I think that's very and I think as the game continues to change and evolve, that'll also continue. I think where we're at right now, that's definitely where we're at.
We're at the true tipping point of like this past few years you could play supportive. Like Dorn's not a bad player, and he's a good weak side top laner. He's fine at carries. He's not like 1v9 in games, but he can play them. But we're seeing the real tipping point of you really do need someone who can just play carries and carry a game.
Right.
So
yeah. And I think as the game continues to go on, it's going to kind of like it's going to keep resolving itself in the same way that it kind of has over time as these metas come and go.
Yeah.
So
like I'm sure tanks will eventually just be way better than carries top lane in the future, but that's not now. So
yeah. No, I think that's fair.
Yeah. I would say one last thing for Hanwha Life. As I said, I was a Hanwha Life super fan. I am so sad that you lost in quarterfinals. I think you were the most exciting team to watch in the world. As I said, like you just have a bunch of players who can make explosive plays that other teams can't, and it's just so fun to watch that. Like I like watching Gen G has its fun in having the perfect games of everyone has like 11 CS per minute and they play map rotation super well, but it also is like, it could be a little bit more exciting sometimes. You're not looking for as many solo kills or 2v2 kills. You're not looking to brawl it out at 5 minutes or whatever.
Right.
And I mean, BLG does have a little bit of excitement in it. I think they're more closer to Hanwha Life in that brawling state. I talked about Weibo as just kind of a team they're good. Like, I'm a Tarzan fan. I supported Breathe when he was our RNG. But, like, obviously, I don't think they're most exciting. And then, while I do like T1, I do think these last 3 years of T1 have been, like, not always the best to watch for T1. Because, I mean, you have the classic LCK meme where it's like, T1 falls 5k, go behind, go to a dragon, they win the fight, and they just win the game. Like,
when in doubt, flip Baron.
I don't know. It's like I think all the T1 players are good in their individual right. I think they're good as a team, but it's like I just wish they were more exciting to watch.
Yeah. Well, there was another
there was one more series. Don't worry.
Which I think was also incredibly exciting to watch.
It was the best series, to be honest.
It was so much fun.
Jinji,
we made him sweat. We made Jinji sweat.
We almost won.
It was
more than just sweat. It was like a river.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a really awesome series because of the way that FlyQuest was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was so interesting because I know that their scrims have been very unorthodox compared to basically any other year that any team has ever done this, of like, we're going to just not scrim the Eastern teams at all.
Yeah. I know Cage talked about it. I think this series shows it a lot, and just FlyQuest in general. You really don't need to always play the Eastern style or Eastern champs. You need to play your own game.
Yeah.
And if you do, you're just going to be more successful.
Yeah, and boy, did they play their own champs.
Yes, they did.
With Nunu. We got the set top. We got Fiddlesticks. I mean, they decided they were cooking. Which if there's gonna be a team that's gonna cook,
is one with Inspired on it.
Inspired and Whippo.
Yep.
Those are chefs.
They do cook a lot, but I mean, at the end of the day, Game 5 is why Gen G is favorited to win and why Gen G is so hard to beat.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if you draft standard against them, or if you allow them to play their game, which is very easy to do because their game is very flexible, you can do a lot. They can do a lot of things, essentially.
Yeah.
They're just going to steamroll you, and they did.
Yeah. We kind of just fell for the Yone bait a little bit.
Smolder is very good to Yone.
Yeah.
And I knew that, and Jerry doesn't because he got mad at me for losing a Yone Smolder matchup.
It was a awesome series, though.
It was a great series. As an NA fan, obviously, it's very fun to watch.
Yeah.
And then just in general of the idea of like a NA team can actually take what is considered the best team in the world to a fifth game.
Yeah, we got to see what the finals should have been. That's what
maybe. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe Gen G 3-0s everyone.
Hey, I'm down for the narrative because I think that it's just super exciting to see because kind of also looking for, if we want to talk about looking forward for NA, or do we want to wait for that one?
We look forward for NA right now.
Yeah.
I think NA this year played really well, and I think G2 did well as well. But I think this year especially is more encouraging than years in past because of the way we lost.
Right.
Because if you look at Team Liquid's games, right, the LNG and Weibo game, it's not like they're losing. And because, in years past, you'd see a Western team and Eastern team play, and they'd be even in kills at 10 minutes, but the Eastern team would have a 3K gold lead.
Yeah, it just felt lost from the beginning. Yes. Every single game.
Every game it was like, this top laner can match them mechanically, but they're also always down CS somehow, or they're always losing plates.
Yep.
But nowadays it feels like, if the gold lead is even, or if the kills are even, the gold's also even.
Right.
Unless some weird thing happened, of course.
Yeah.
And it feels like NA and to an extent G2 has been putting themselves in situations where the reason why they're losing isn't because they're being out macroed or because the mechanics are way worse. It's because they're just mis-executing just key plays.
Yeah.
And if they can remedy those, if they can make the Baron team fight won instead of lost, or if they smite at the right time, or maybe if they have slightly better mechanics, they can win.
Yeah, and I think that's something that is a little bit easier to fix than what the issue that we've been trying to resolve for almost a decade now. And that's, as an NA fan, I love that. I
mean, it's very encouraging to watch.
Yeah, and I just hope that the rest of the NA team, because we now have, it's not just felt like it's just been TL for a little bit.
To be fair,
or one team.
Cloud9, TL. Yeah,
it's
been
one team at a time.
Very long time. Even going back way back, it was COG.
It's just CLG.
COG did really well, and then C9 did really well, and then
it was Team Liquid.
Team Liquid, and then it was back to C9, and then it was kind of back to TL, but now it's TL and FlyQuest are doing well.
Yeah.
And then, as I said, G2's been doing pretty well. So
yeah, but I think just the fact that it's two teams, even though TL obviously they didn't make it out,
and I feel just saying TL wasn't being out Teal was beating themselves almost, which is almost encouraging in a way, because it's like when you know that you can improve yourself, or when it's easy to point out the problems that you need to fix, it's a lot more encouraging, a lot more easy to just like fix those issues or get on the idea to fix those issues. So
yeah, and I will have to see how that takes place whenever we have this new structure for the.
I mean, I won't say anything about that yet. I kind of know how it works. I don't know. I hope Rainbow Seven isn't in the North Conference. All right, I don't like them.
Hey, well, that just
but they probably will be.
If they're in the North Conference, then we just get to knock them out every single year. So then you'll never see them at an international event.
True, but I'll have to watch them
see them every
week.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. If you just don't like R7, and that's kind of whatever. But semifinals.
First time we're actually coming out with a podcast episode before the next event or round.
Let's go.
Weibo BOG. I think BOG is obviously very heavily favored.
Mm-hmm.
They beat them in summer playoffs 3-2, though it probably should have been heavier in BOG's favor. I have BOG 3-1. Jay, our producer, has BOG 3-0. And he specifically has Xiaohu Fraud, which, by the way, is true.
I mean, Xiaohu looks pretty good in the series versus LNG, I think. But
Xiaohu is the ultimate. If you grief into me, I'll do well. But if he's like ISU, if you grief into him, he does well.
BLG doesn't have,
but he doesn't win the game.
Yeah, BLG has a mid laner who's gonna grief, right?
Oh yeah, Knight is definitely not like a top 3 mid laner in the world.
For sure. Yeah, I also have BLG 3-0. I agree with Jay. I think it's gonna. I think BLG are just because throughout the entire Swiss they were looking kind of shaky. They really stepped it up.
Actually, at the wrong time for the record.
No, it's at the right time.
Hanwha Life should have won.
You guys saved my pick'ems. Yeah.
Funny thing. Actually, we don't need to talk about pick'ems, to be fair. But
I mean, we can talk about your pick'ems
first. My pick'ems for Swiss stage, I had 6 out of 8 right. But Mr. J over there was like, "Oh, you should pick TL instead of FlyQuest." So I did that for some reason, and obviously I'm wrong now. So I should have had 7 out of 8. But my quarterfinals were atrocious. Ferocious. Oh my! I picked LNG, who should have been better.
Probably.
I picked Hanwha Life, which obviously I'm picking Hanwha Life. I picked Top Esports, mostly because I think it would have been more interesting for Top Esports if they won, and I thought Top Esports had better form.
Genji versus China.
And then I had Genji winning, obviously.
You in half.
And then
90%
what
of the
Game
world.
5 had was like, it did cross my mind. It's like, am I really gonna go 0-4 in pick'ems? That would have been crazy.
That'd have been awesome. I got 2 of them right. I had BLG, but that's mainly just because I definitely thought Hanwha was gonna win.
You had BLG as your crystal ball, though. So.
They are, so I got it. They're going all the way. But
I don't have a huge breakdown of this semifinal, though. I think Ben will gap breathe like he did in regional. I think Tarzan will play well. I think Xiaohu will get destroyed. All right, if he's not 0-5 in lane, Knight's not doing well enough.
True.
And then bot lane, I mean, Crisp is a griefer. Everyone knows this. If you watch anything, and Elk and On are just better.
Yeah.
So
I just like Ben a lot. I think BLG stands for Ben. Let's go. I think the gameplay that I see is just very exciting. It's very fun to watch every time.
Yeah.
So definitely, and it does so well. But so that semifinals should be pretty easy.
Yeah, I do like BLG. Yeah. I think finally getting to watch Knight overcome that hump of not winning any internationals, or I think he won one last year with JDG. Yeah. But it'd be very fun to see him win a Worlds where so many people doubted him, so many people said he's a choker.
Yeah.
So.
It feels like there's a lot of people who are being claimed as chokers.
Yeah.
The longer this goes on, the more chokers there are.
Yeah, it's just like so many players that reach these quarterfinals, semifinals, or even finals, and they don't win on other Worlds. Like Doran and Peanut, to an extent, they've won multiple FCK titles, but they don't win Worlds.
Yeah.
And there is a point where you have to ask yourself, why are they not winning Worlds?
Yeah.
And for Doran, it's we talked about it. You just aren't carrying the games, or you're griefing the games away.
Yeah.
So
And speaking about teams that just don't win worlds,
Gen G.
Gen G versus
They
T1.
technically won World to Samsung.
Well, sure. But mainly thinking about the players that are on that team, and
The roster, yeah.
specifically Chovy.
Everyone talks about Chovy to an extent. I mean, if you go through the years, it's like most of his runs, he probably shouldn't win Worlds. Like 2019 Griffin probably shouldn't. The DRX and Hanwha Life years, he probably shouldn't as well. But once he got to Gen G, I feel like not only was he considered like maybe he's the best player of the world over Faker or whatever, it's like his expectations have been a lot higher because he's always had a good team around him at Gen G.
Yeah.
He hasn't been able to get it done for one reason or another, good or bad.
Yeah, and they're going against the team that seems to always get it done, or seems compared
to always just do poorly in summer and then
somehow just
win Worlds.
So
did you do well?
So of course I predict Gen G to win.
Yeah. I mean, as a T1 fan, of course I'm gonna predict that Gen G wins. I mean, have you watched T1 and Gen G play? Gen G always beats them. Like, what do you want me to tell you?
No.
I just think, looking at the year as a whole, Gen G's always been better than T1 this year. I think T1 played really well last series, but that does not mean they're the better team or they're just going to win the series because they played better. And same thing with Gen G. Like, they played poorly last series. They could have played better.
Yeah.
FlyQuest did deserve their 2 wins, but like, they should have played better. But I do think it's like a wake-up call. They hadn't played a stage game in 2 weeks. I think, looking at it, Gen G should be favored. I have them winning 3-1. Wouldn't be surprised if it's 3-0. Wouldn't be surprised if it's 3-2. Yeah. I wouldn't even be surprised if T1 won to an extent.
Yeah. I think because of the quarterfinal, like the showing that both of the teams have had, it does feel like T1 are kind of ramping up and Gen G are honestly kind of falling off a little bit.
A little.
Like in comparison.
To be fair, FlyQuest have been ramping up a lot.
Yeah, that's true. But it still should be Gen G, you expect it to be a 3-0, and then it ends up being incredibly close. Like, honestly, FlyQuest could have won the series. Was it Game 4?
Game 4. So they were up 2-1 FlyQuest. They could have won Game 4.
And Game
5 was never really close to be fair,
that one was a little rough. But so I think that's the argument for T1 is that the direction. I mean, T1 looked really good into top esports. And people keep talking about the Zeus escape, which is still so fun. But I think just their whole, Game 2 was a crushing game.
Yeah, 15-0 for kill score.
So I would not be surprised if that's the actual direction of the team, then I could see T1 definitely pulling away with it.
At the end of the day, T1 does play their best at Worlds. And T1's not a bad team by any means. I've criticized them, but that's because they deserve to be criticized. And
hold a good team to high standard.
Yeah, I mean, they won Worlds last year and they made World Finals in 2022. Like, I'm allowed to say, Owner and Carrier, you're not doing well. It doesn't matter if Faker's off his regular champions. That does not make you play badly. So
that's what we have for Worlds.
I have my producer Jay has his prediction of Gen G 3-2. By the way,
3-2.
He would have a more Gen G favored, but he said because T1 looks so good against top esports, it's just going to be he believes in the 5-game series. Yeah. So I believe
that's what I said.
Yeah. I hope it's a 5-game series at least. So.
Yeah. You want that out of Worlds, is you want everything to go the distance because that usually is the most exciting.
Yeah. And then I do want to talk about story for Gen G.
Go for it.
Because we talked about Chovy, how he's been called a choker for a long time, and I don't think it's always warranted. I think he could have done better in some specific tournaments, but when you lose to DRX, who has Zeka playing insanely well, or you're losing to BLG, I think, who was the surprise of the tournament essentially, you can cut him some slack sometimes. But I think Pays specifically, I don't know why people hate Pays. I think for AD carriers in general, when you're on a team like Gen G, where you have Keen, Canyon, Jovi, it's easy to say, they aren't looking super great because they aren't playing towards him. Usually he's on more Ashes or Ziggs or Varus or Jhin or whatever. I think Pace is super, super good. I think he has really good mechanics. I would call him like 4th, 5th, 6th best AD carry in the world, somewhere in there. Do I think he's going to 1v9 games for Gen G? Most of the time, no. But I am annoyed that people are like, Pace sucks, and all these AD carriers are better than him, and he can't 1v9 games, when it's like, the reason why he's not 1v9 games is because he has Chovy and Keen and Canyon just like destroying topside. Mm-hmm. Like, he doesn't need to, go 20-0 in lane. Mm-hmm. So I just want to see Pace win a world championship. I want to see Chovy and Keen, to an extent, like, prove that they actually can win worlds.
Right.
And then I like Lehen, so.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see, and we have those coming up on Saturday and Sunday.
Mm-hmm. 7 and 8 a.m. I don't know why they're not at the same time.
Yeah, it's only one
and then
game.
World Finals is at 9.
It is at 9, so I mean, I'm more fine with that one.
Yeah.
But do you have anything else for Worlds? Nothing. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening to us rant about Worlds and talk about varsity and JV. Stay tuned for the games coming up on Saturday. JV, Husker Scarlet should be streamed on twitch.tv/Risen_esports. We're going to try to get Huskers Black streamed, but I know that Varsity is going to be playing.
Yeah, so Varsity is playing a CCL game at the same time. I don't know how it's going to work out.
Right.
I assume Varsity will get preference simply because.
Varsity. Yeah, well, because so we'll see how that goes. Mm-hmm. But stay tuned.
We'll have a stream.
We will, and stay tuned. We'll announce it on the Discord. But of course, Varsity has their games Monday at 8 p.m. versus SDSMT on twitch.tv/Nebraska Esports.
100% streamed.
That will definitely be streamed. So thank you guys for staying tuned to the Cornhusker Cooldown. Hope to see you guys next time.